Hey guys, it's Jake here at Canadian Cutting Edge. Today we're taking a look at a knife that I got from GearBest. I bought this one myself. This is the Brother 1605G. What does this look like to you? This looks like the Spyderco BYRD Cara 2. 440C steel is what they claim to have. And I will be doing a cut test on this eventually. I wanted to get the cut test done before I reviewed this, but I've just run out of time with, trying to get my cut tests to work. I'm still trying to find a really good product to use to do those cut tests. A lot like the way Pete does it over on Cedric and Ada Gear and Outdoor channel. But I don't have that all smoothed out yet. I'm giving myself the deadline of having that all figured out by the end of February. So what we've got is a tip-up carry knife. Pocket clip can go on either side. Lanyard hole right in the middle of the base of the pocket clip. G10 handle scales. Back lock. Nice big thumb riser here. Forward choil. Some people call them a half and half choil. So you can hold it like this. Look how much extra room you've got. You can hold it back here if you need a lot of reach. We've got a long drop point blade, that classic leaf shape that Spyderco does. And they use the Spyderco hole instead of the BYRD hole, which is, the BYRD hole is that weird teardrop kind of shape. But they use the round Spyderco hole and full flat grind right up to the spine, blade to the spine. And since there's no thumb studs or anything, it slices right through without any obstructions. And I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get to the tabletop mode, and take a good look at this knife. Stick around. This is a full-size folder, to be sure. Use your thumb in the thumb hole to open it up. Since it's a back lock with a nice strong spring, this isn't a knife that you can do your Spidey flick very easily on. I can get it sometimes if I'm using my second hand to hold the knife. I am not very good at, well, it's not clicking every time. I'm not good at the Spidey flick at all with either finger underneath. It's just the way my skills are working, especially right now. My finger here is healing up very well, but it's still quite sensitive to touch. We've got a blade that they say is a 440C steel, as I mentioned before. It says that right there. And then there's the model number 1605. This is called the 1605G by GearBest. You can get it in black and you can get it in orange. And you can get it in both colors with a full serrated blade. There are times when a serrated blade is very good. Now, if you're watching this channel, you know that I don't do very many reviews at all where a knife is partly serrated and then flat. And that's because I don't like the combination cutting. If I did want a combination cutting blade, I'd want it the other way around. I'd prefer the tip here to be serrated and the base to be flat, fine edge. Why? Because the nature of the way I use a knife, I think I do slicing here and I do sort of that ripping kind of stuff with the tip. Like, so if I had to get through some rope or something, I would do that up here, with a slicing motion where you slide across something. Let's grab this. I've got some rope here. And if this was serrated, I would cut going like this. I'd slide it across. Let's keep going here. G10 handle scales, as I mentioned before. This one's a little bit dirty. I've been carrying this thing quite a lot, actually. It's a comfortable knife to carry, and it does a really good job for most of the kind of EDC tasks that I face. What do we have? Let's start on the tip and work our way this way. We've got a very sharp tip on a blade. We've got, let me get close. You can see how narrow that blade is at the tip. Very sharp. And you've got that cutting edge. And I've sharpened this blade on my TS Prof sharpening system, and it sharpens up very well. I'm thinking that this, very well might be 440C. I'm not totally confident yet, though. I will have to do those cut tests where I compare how well this cuts through a bunch of rope the way Peter does over on the Cedric and Ada Gear and Outdoors channel, compared to other knives that I know are 440C. And that's going to be some knife from Boker Plus and maybe some other knives, so from some big brand names that you know that they're not lying about what the steel is. So I'll compare that to that, but that'll have to come at a later date. Going down the blade, you've got a nice belly, flat section here, and the blade spine just comes up straight and gets nice and wide here. Nice full flat grind, makes this a great slicer. So if you're using this, to cut apart your apple with your lunch or whatever, it slices through fairly well, except for, I will talk about the thickness behind the grind later on. It's a little bit thicker than I'd like it to be. You've got, right here closer to the pivot, you've got jimping on the thumb riser, and the thumb riser comes up and is rounded up like that. So you've got nice jimping there. And you've got jimping right here as well. And it's fairly aggressive jimping. So when you're holding it like this, actually, I called it nice jimping. It is a little too aggressive. I would like it if this was a little bit softer. And I can easily make this softer, and just by taking a little bit of sandpaper over top of this edge here and into here, and just taking a little bit of that top off. I'll give you a close-up of this jimping right here so you can see why it feels sharp to the hand. And then you've got this other half of the forward choil, and that's smooth. There's no jimping on there. So in your hand like this, you can do an awful lot of cutting. You can hold it like this to do some delicate cutting as well. You can get your index finger in that forward choil and the other two back here. Or there's so many different ways you can hold this knife if you want to do some cutting that way. The jimping on the side of this G10, not the jimping, the texture on the side of this G10 is not overly aggressive, but it's a good texture, good amount of grip. The Cara's got FRN, fiber reinforced nylon instead of G10. And it's got 8CR13 MOV steel instead of this 440. But other than that, it's very, very much the same. And you can see on this side, the show side here, all of the screw ends are just nicely rounded. There's no screw heads there. All the screw heads are on this side. You got this pocket clip that's got a hole in it. That spoon shape, very much like Spyderco's pocket clips. I'd like to see my lanyard holes closer to the end of the handle usually, but it's not terrible there. I tend not to use lanyards anyway, so it's not a big deal. One good thing is the pocket clip is right and left, so that's very good. The liners are hefty and strong. There's a little bit of skeletonizing in there. I'm going to take this knife apart and show you some of that. And I believe they got phosphor bronze washers in here. I don't remember because I took this knife apart, over a month ago, and my memory's just not that good. But I'll take this apart and show you the insides of that. And I'll do that right now, so check out these pictures. Okay, so now let's do the dimensions and everything. We'll zoom in. A cutting edge, 8.46 centimeters, that's 3.33 inches. Blade length, so end of the handle right here to the tip of the blade, 9.67 centimeters, 3.8 inches. The blade thickness is 3 millimeters, which is 0.117 inches. The blade depth, and I'm measuring that right here, the sharp edge to above the circle right here, 2.88 centimeters, 1.13 inches. The thickness of the edge behind the grind that I referred to before, it's a little bit thicker than I'd like it to be. It's 0.65 millimeters, which is 0.0255 inches. I'd like it to be closer to 0.5 millimeter instead of 0.65, so it's a little bit thicker, but it's not crazy thick, so it's not a big deal. Let's talk about the handle now. Handle length, 12.24 centimeters. That's 4.82 inches. The grip area, and now I'm measuring from way up here, where my thumbnail is, to the end of the handle, because you can get a finger in here quite comfortably. Grip area, 12.72 centimeters, 5 inches. The handle thickness, not counting a pocket clip, is 1.2 centimeters. That's 0.47 of an inch, so just under 1/2 inch thick. The handle depth That's this dimension. And the handle depth, I'm measuring right here at the thickest or widest spot, 2.85 centimeters, 1.12 inches. And then the total length of this knife when it's open is 21.8 centimeters, 8.58 inches. So that's a full-size folder, to be sure. How much does this full-size folder weigh? 132 grams, 4.7 ounces. So you get under that 5-ounce mark, and under 5 ounces, that's a really good thing. And this knife, you know, a lot of people really like the Cara. It's a very comfortable knife. The Cara costs around $20 right now. And as I said, it's got FRN and 8CR13 MOV steel. So this thing arguably has better steel, and I hope that bears out in my testing in the future. So stay tuned to my channel and I'll let you know about that. And it's got G10 instead of FRN. So arguably this is a better knife in some ways. How much does this knife cost at GearBest? US dollars. And there's a variety of prices because, like I said, you get 2 colors of G10 and you get plain edge or serrated edge. So I'm just going to give you a rough number. $15.99 or a little bit less in US dollars, about $2 shipping. In Canadian dollars, it's about $20.30 or a little bit less, and it's about $2.67 for shipping. Euros, 13.26 or a little bit less, and it's under €2 for shipping. And in pounds sterling, 11.74 pounds or a little bit less, and about 1.5 pounds for shipping. So that's a very good price for what you get. And my fellow Canadians, I totally believe that if you order this knife and it got inspected by CBSA on the way into Canada, this thing, I can't guarantee it, but I'm saying this thing's 99.9% sure of passing their tests at CBSA. Because basically, it's a knife that you can't easily just flick open, and you need much more than minimal help to get the blade to come open. So I think this is a knife that's very safe to order from GearBest if you want to order it. And the price is very good. Let's talk about a few more details. Is there anything special about this knife? Not really, other than, you know, the kinds of things that I mentioned already. What do I like and what do I dislike? I very much like that it fits almost any hand. My hands are large, bordering on extra large. And people with extra large hands will be able to handle this knife. Men with medium hands, I think probably even men with small hands are going to find this knife comfortable enough to fit in their hand and use. I really think so. The backlock works quite well. I don't like that the backlock has got just a little bit of play in it. So you can just do a little bit up and down play, but it locks up solid. It's got a nice deep hole that it engages in. Not bad at all. And it's got really slight side-to-side play from the factory, but I just snugged it up a tiny bit here, and it still opens and closes very well, and it got rid of that side-to-side play. So it just wasn't totally tuned from the factory, so that's not a problem. I really like that the show side here doesn't have any screw heads showing. I really dislike when you've got the kind of screws that you have to use a screwdriver on both sides. Pocket clip works very well. I like this nice spoon on here. It does leave a little bit showing in your pocket. I'll show you that in just a minute. What are the cons? Well, I already mentioned it. A little bit of blade play in that lock. I would like that the lanyard hole was further to the back, but they're copying Spyderco or the BYRD brand, so they put it exactly where they did. So no big deal about that, really. The only other thing is this jimping's a little bit aggressive. I mentioned that before too, and that's an easy enough thing to fix too. So there's nothing really major that is going on here. Just a couple minor things that are easy to deal with, unless you like to use lanyards and you really hate how far in this hole is. You know, then that's might be a deal breaker for you. I don't know. You get to make up your own deal breakers. The last thing that I really, really like is Since there's no thumb stud to get in the way, when you're slicing through things, they just slide all the way through on this full flat grind. I really do like a full flat grind. Very, very good that way. So now let's do a little bit of a cut demonstration and a pocket demonstration with this pocket clip. It slides on very well. And then there you go. You've got that sticking out. That's about 3/4 of an inch, almost 2 centimeters sticking out. Not a big deal, but it is what it is. So if you really hate that much sticking into your pockets, you're not going to want this knife unless you take the pocket clip off and just drop it in your pocket as a pocket dropper, which some guys do, but a lot of guys totally dislike that idea. But this spoon holds very well. It slides on easily. You never have to think twice. It just always just easily goes on, and it just slides over every single time without having to really aim hard or accurately or anything. You just put it in your pocket and it just goes where it's supposed to go. That's a really good thing. Let's do a little bit of cutting. Let's see how well she cuts. I do have to use 2 hands when I'm cutting, and that's largely because of the arthritis in my hands. And that's, again, a demonstration of how I can make it look like it's really dull because I'm using 2 hands to cut with, but it's not really dull. It's just the fact my hands are weak with arthritis. It's actually quite sharp. And this is stuff that's really nasty to cut, and yet you've got a nice clean cut on there. We've got some paper here. Still cuts fairly well. I sharpened this knife quite a while ago. I got this knife about 2 months ago, and like I said before, I've carried it quite a lot. Holds the edge quite well. Cutting with this knife. So yeah, cuts great, works great, looks good, feels good. This is a knife that I'd like to recommend to you if you're looking for a knife like this. There's no big problems with it. There's a couple little things that I've already mentioned. So thank you so much for watching this video. Thanks for liking, sharing, commenting. If you've got any questions, put those in the comments as well. And remember, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.